Can you explain your tattoo sleeve? I always wanted to just make a video about this just because of angles and zoom and whatnot. So I don't know if this is going to be satisfactory to you, but I will do the best that I can. Okay, this is going to be a little tricky. I will do my best. All right, here we go. Let's see. So it all started with this guy right here. Okay. Now, some of you may or may not recognize this picture of this knight. And this is the part that I'm like, hold on, let me explain. This right here is, this character is from a Jon Bellion album cover. Okay. I don't listen to the guy. He's got one good song as far as I'm aware, but I saw the picture and I was like, yo, that is, I need that. Because the specific thing, which you probably can't see, is that it's hard to see in the ink, but the expression on his face is one of turmoil, okay? So it is a knight that's kneeling down and he has this giant hammer. The sun is behind him, and then we have basically space and galaxies. It's kind of all around him. But he has this red cape, and it's flowing. And the reason I got this first, the reason I wanted it, was because I love the picture, but what the picture represents for me is that this is essentially me. It's a symbol of me. The armor is my military training and all the work that I've done. And the expression on the face was the most important part, because when I lost my dad, it broke me. I mean, it broke me. So like the fact that he's kneeling down and he's crushed, even with all the armor, like, he is a warrior in his own right, but still something took him to his knees. So this picture meant a lot to me. And so I made sure the artist could do the face the right way, otherwise it wasn't worth getting. So even beyond the armor, like, this meant a lot to me. Now, here's the part that some of you will be like, bro, are you serious? I'm serious. Can you see the hammer? Okay. You see, he's holding this long handled giant hammer right there. See it? That hammer represents my dad. Okay. You're not gonna, this is the part that I think you're going to be like, are you serious? That hammer is from World of Warcraft. Okay? Let me explain. My dad was a carpenter. Yeah, it's an Alliance hammer. Okay? My dad was a carpenter, so he could build anything. And he wasn't a carpenter like for a job. He was just a guy who grew up on a farm from the time he was a fetus, and he just knew how to build stuff. And he was always out chopping wood and doing man stuff, you know? So it made sense when I had the warrior put on my body. I wanted something that represented dad. So I couldn't put a hammer in his hands. It wouldn't make any sense. So I went with this mace, which is the Grand Marshal's mace, which is top tier combat in the game. When you reach that top level and you have beaten everybody else, you're essentially awarded this hammer in a way. And to me, that was the perfect symbol of dad. Yes, it's World of Warcraft, a virtual world that I lived in for 20 years, but what this represented was more about my dad and what he represented to me, and the fact that even through all of my experiences, it was losing him that really broke me. And that armor meant nothing. It was still what put me to my knees. Now, the fact that the sun is behind him came later. And that was really a result of me telling the artist, who she did all of this, that she asked me later on after I had more work done. She said, so do you still feel like this is you? And I said, well, I think it's me. It's part of my story, but I don't feel like I have this turmoil like I did when I got it, because I was a mess and I was barely functioning. And she's like, well, then maybe we need to put a sun back there to show that the sun does rise again. And I was like, nail it. And I can't even say, oh, that's a hell of an upsell. Let me do that. She did it for free. So that meant a lot to me. And that's why the sun is behind his head. Now moving right along. The next piece that came was this. You're going to laugh at. This right here. See all this chemical? All that. That is oxytocin. Oxytocin is the social bonding molecule. When you meet somebody, when you hug somebody, there's love, there's affection. That is the chemical that is released in your brain. Okay, releasing your body, however you want to put it. And because of, like, I joke about those people, like, I don't like crowds, but I love people and I love sharing the human experience and the human condition, which is what we do here. I just don't like crowds. But the reason I love deep conversation is because there is this, like, this primal piece of who we are, where if I share information with you and you share information with me, we are now that much better than we were before. Regardless of whether or not you agree with somebody's information, it's still information you did not have before. So you are that much better. That oxytocin to me is a very atomical way that to me reminds me that we are all connected in our own way. The next piece was the Tree of Life. So this right here. Now, some of you will have your stories about the Tree of Life and what it represents to you, or what it represents in general, okay? But I'm going to tell you what it meant to me when I brought it to the artist to say, hey, can we do this? I brought her a picture of a tree that was like this, that showed, it was more silhouette. It was very dark. And it was the roots, it was the twisted trunk, and then it was basically the same concept of kind of dying on this side and then a little more lush on this side. And when I showed it to her, I said, I want this Tree of Life down here. She said, well, why do you want this? I said, well, to me, this picture represents the fact that if you look at the roots and then the bound roots all the way up the trunk and then it goes to the tree, that's kind of what I think is another way to say that us as humans are all connected, like down to our roots. Regardless of where we grew up and what our upbringing was like and what music we like, we are all connected in a lot of ways, and we're a lot more similar than we are different. So we go through this life pattern, and then eventually, like, we go through a phase of growing and we're very lush and wonderful, and then eventually we pass on, right? But then it results in other things. So if you look at the top of the tree, we have these birds that kind of go, and I love birds. I love all the sounds they make. Oh, they're the best. They never get annoying. I don't want to smash them all with a brick or like a bunch of bricks. But this kind of cycle of life really does show that even after these last bits of, brush or leaves die off, that there's still something to go on. Like there's still a soul, a spirit, a consciousness. There's still more to the story. That's what I believe anyway. I don't have the details. That's just what I think. And that goes back to like thermodynamics. I think you cannot destroy energy. Energy just changes form. So I think that whatever makes us moves on. Like it just changes. That's what I think. So that's what the birds represent. Are you bored yet? Sorry, this is really a long answer. I know all my answers are long, so sorry. It's like he's just rambling. All right, next up. So this is a little trickier. Okay, if you look, take my watch off. Okay, so if you look at down here on my wrist, all the way around, you see all those little marks and divots. Okay, it's kind of hard to see, but these marks and divots are all flowers in a field. Okay, and then a little bit of the field is here in the green. This is water, and then in the background, these are snow-capped mountains. Okay, and those mountains, and there's a little forest back there. It's hard to show you all of it, but that is the White Mountains in New Hampshire. That whole scene is New Hampshire. So that represents home to me. It represents some of the challenges that I had as a kid. And that is literally a picture of, like, I think it's Mount Washington, but the White Mountains, and with that scene with the water, it's all there. It's all New Hampshire. I love it. It's where I grew up. But also I made sure that when she did this blue down here in the, not the blue, this blue up here in the sky, I said I need it to be this shade, because sometimes when I'm, and this has always been the case with me, if I'm in the military, if I'm overseas, whatever's going on, sometimes I'll catch a glimpse of the sky where the trees are like this big, beautiful green, and the sky is perfectly blue, not a cloud in the sky. And it's just that contrast between the blue and the green. And I just go, and I just get lost. I just get completely in a trance, and something about that just grabs me and makes me just STFU and pause. So I was like, yo, I need this on me to remind me of that pause and, you know, whatever the hell goes on in that moment. So that's why all that's there, to kind of show where I grew up and the challenges. Now, there's another piece to that, which I won't really get too far into, but it also represents kind of this metaphor that I've always kind of lived by. And I've shared with friends along the way when I felt like they were struggling with something, where I liken, you know, life to something like this, where there are valleys and there are mountains and there's summits and there's challenges. And sometimes it's like, hey, if we're in a valley right now, I'm going to throw on my pack. I'm going to start to go up the hill. And then when I crest the hill, I might have to stop and throw everything down and kind of set up camp for a while. That doesn't mean that I'm done. It doesn't mean that I've just had enough. It just means I'm tired right now. I just want to sit down and I want to rest. It doesn't mean I'm done the journey. I just want to rest. And I might be here for a year. I might be here for 5 years. I set up camp. This is just life right now. And that's fine. At some point, I'll pick everything back up, put on my pack, and I'll boop, 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 boop. And I might be going up a hill. I might be going down into the valley. I might go swimming a little bit. The point is that I'm going to take this journey, and it's going to have lulls, and it's going to have peaks, and it's going to have challenges. And I choose where I want to set my pack down and take a breather. But I'm going to keep going because there's a whole bunch of shit around and I want to see all of it. So if I'm struggling now, I'm like, man, this sucks. Well, I need to change it up. I need to go find a new hill, or I need to say, my legs are tired. I'm going to go back down there. I'm going to keep it easy for a little while. And I just call the shots. I do the best that I can with what I've got. Sometimes it pours on you and you are miserable, but that rain will stop, the sun will come out, and you just got to gut it out sometimes. You got to grind. Yeah, it sucks, but Mother Nature doesn't give a flying, doesn't matter. You just got to be like, whew, and you just sit there. You just pout. I don't like being wet. But at some point, the rain stops and you put your pack back on, boop, 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 and you just keep on trucking. That's how I roll. So that's kind of the metaphor that I use with that. Oh yeah. So that's all the lower stuff except for, you ain't ready. right there. Look at her. She looks like a friggin' clown in space. That is not what I was going for, to be clear. That's the, yeah. So I brought the picture. It looks just like her, but I brought the picture to the artist and I was like, can you make sure that she looks like this picture? And she was like, yeah, easy day. Now, the reason I hired this woman to do everything is because she did a tattoo of, oh, how do you say his name? Pat Morita, I think is Pat Morita, who played Mr. Miyagi in the Karate Kid, the original one, not this other never-ending story of 75 Karate Kids in class. She did this tattoo of Pat Morita that was like a friggin' painting. It was like a photo. Unbelievable. And I was like, you're my person. So I hired her. Great. So I knew she could do it. What I wasn't expecting was that she was going to use the colors of the galaxy that I had back here to color her face. I wanted it to be, how do I do this? I wanted it to be like a watercolor. And she made her look like she's a space clown. Like her teeth are blue. I'm like, wait, was she falling Kool-Aid? What's going on? It's great, though. It really does look like her, so I'm very grateful. But it was not what I had in mind. Still great, though. I can't complain. And then, of course, which you cannot see because even I can't see it, is that back here is all the galaxy and space, because somewhere back here is Orion's belt. I don't know where it is, but it's supposed to be on there somewhere in the galaxy, Orion's belt. That's been my true north since I was a kid. I go through hard times. I'm anywhere in the world and I'm struggling. Look up. There it is. Okay, we're good. Still there. Yep. Orion's belt. So that is everything on my sleeve. I know it's been 3 years that I have promised to share that with you, and here we are. Those are all of my tattoos. I hope you enjoyed.